What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Benfica podcast. On tonight's edition, episode number 210, we will look back at the Braga game. We'll also look ahead to the Tondela game and look ahead what's on the menu for August. With me tonight, Steve Santos. What's going on, my brother?
You know, another night, another podcast. Here I am.
Start of the season.
Start of the season. It's exciting times, really. I'm not a fan of preseason, nor am I a fan of transfer season. So when the games start to count and there you don't see 11 substitutes per game, it's always a good thing in my books.
Right. So let's get right into this Braga. Benfica played Braga for the Super Cup this past weekend in Aveiro. And I'll give you the lineup real quick. Júlio César, Semedo right back, Luizão and Lindelof, the center back pairing, Grimaldo at left back, facing Horta in the middle of the pitch, Pizzi on the right, Servi on the left, Jonas and Mitroglou, the all too familiar tandem up front, is what we saw. Steve, basically perhaps the strongest lineup that he has available, with Jardel being injured, with Eliseu not yet available physically and in form, but we know that he's going to have a hard time against Grimaldo. But Pizzi on the right, I mean, no surprise really.
No, I think me, you, and George basically named this lineup. I think all of us probably had Luizão on the bench in place of Lisandro, or all of us thought that might have been the right choice, but had a feeling Rui Vitória would do differently. So, no, it wasn't any surprises. What I did like to see was that we did see Horta again at number 8, and that's the player that we're all dying to see do well, and then he played a pretty good match. But as far as the lineup goes, you can't really expect differently, or I wouldn't change Pizzi like some people would. You know, it's the best lineup. It's what should have been played, and that's what happened.
I guess the things that we've said here numerous times is that Pizzi really provides a balance in that midfield, because he can come in, add that extra man in the midfield. He's also a guy that's not all gung-ho with the blinders on and just take down the line like Salvio is. So he's a guy that provides a little bit of the balance in the midfield for Benfica, which we saw last year.
Yeah, he's a super intelligent player. I mean, he just, like I've said so many times, if he had the feet to go with the intelligence, I don't think we'd be able to hold him at Benfica. But he still misses. He still doesn't have the ability to do what his brain thinks it can do all the time, and that's probably why we still have him. But all in all, a fantastic player for the Portuguese league. I mean, probably in the top 10 in the league if I really had to start ranking players. But I would assume that he makes it up there.
Yeah, and I know that Cristiano is frustrated oftentimes just watching him, because he's the type of guy that does a lot of things well, and then other things that he's just like, it's almost like he stops, or maybe his technical ability is not there. I don't know. It's really tough to get get a read on Pizzi, but the truth of the matter is that he's a very helpful player for this Benfica team and for Rui Vitória. So let's get right into the game. Benfica started really fast, really quick, and Servi was on the board 10 minutes in. I would say the first 20 minutes, Benfica really controlled, and they could have been up more than once. Steve, how did you see this first half by Benfica?
Oh, the first 20 minutes was just some amazing football. I mean, the combination play on the left between Servi and Grimaldo was just a joy to watch. You saw the goal that came from it. Even on the other side, Pizzi and Semedo had some good exchanges. Horta was spreading the ball around and making the right decisions. It was a fantastic first half. Jonas looked okay. I think throughout the whole game, not even just the first 20 minutes, I was not too impressed with Mitroglou. I think he could have done more to offer himself to more of the ball and whatnot, but I thought the first 20 minutes were really, really good until Braga made the tactical switch.
Right. What did you see in the Braga's game, the tactical switch that really nullified Benfica in the last, I would say, 15 minutes of the half, and then subsequently towards the second half also?
Braga started off with a 4-3-3 with, I believe, Rafa on one side. For the life of me right now, I can't remember the name of their center forward. I believe he's Serbian. And on the other side, it was Pedro Santos, who had a very good game and seems to always play really well against us. And then you had Tiba. Right now, I'm having a bit of a block, but you had a three-man midfield behind that. And when they played the 4-3-3, they were also sitting quite deep and not really pressing. If we found it really easy to play out of the back. I mean, Lindelof had a couple really nice passes, a couple good plays where he's attracting players onto him and dishing it off. But as soon as they went 4-4-2 and started defending with two banks of four, they started to press higher up the pitch and occupy spaces in such a way that it became very difficult for us to play out of the back. And where in the first 20, 25 minutes we were getting the ball in the more creative areas controlled and in a position where we could face the net and play proper football. In the last bit of the first half, we could never do that. Braga were forcing us always to go long, and we didn't have either the plans or processes in place to win that second ball off of Mitroglou or off of Jonas or whatever the combination would be, or we didn't have the garra, we didn't have the desire to really get to that ball before Braga did. So we were just coughing up the ball every time we got it. It would always go long to either of those two guys. We'd lose it, and Braga would start playing again and coming at us. And that's really what happened in the first half, and that's what really continued to happen for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that perhaps the lack of Benfica having a guy in the midfield that can carry the ball, that can face the opposition, it was perhaps one of the downfalls. I know that Horta likes to get the ball in space, but he's like a touch and go guy. He's not a guy that will face the opposition. What do you think?
I think Horta's he carries the ball a bit. I mean, he's not going to run through people, but he's good at knowing to carry to attract people towards him so that he could find that touch off and show up again. That's the type of football he likes to play. He's not the guy who, like, again, we're always going to be comparing him to his predecessor Renato. He's not the type of guy that invites that contact and invites lots of guys to him and just keeps on running through it. It's a different type of player. I don't know if I want to single out any specific player as to why we weren't able to combat Braga's midfield. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to find other teams that press us well, and we're going to have to find ways to get around it. And I don't think, sure, that's a way to get past people is if you have a guy who's really strong on the ball and he's going to burst through people. But that's an individualistic way of doing it, and we need to find a way that collectively that we can do that because we don't have Renato Sanchez anymore.
Yeah, and tactically, I'm not trying to make any excuses, but it from a start of the season standpoint, it's a lot easier to play defense and to press than it is to have those routines in place where you're playing supported football and you're getting away from the press. So it's a lot easier. So in that aspect, I think that Benfica struggled to find that quick 1-2s to get out of the pressing and the defensive system that Braga was mounting around Benfica's midfield. And that's why they were always going long.
For sure.
And then if you think about it, I mean, last year Mitroglou started pretty late, took him a little bit to get going, and I think that this season, from the looks of it, it looks like the same. He's not a guy that's ready to go right away. Jonas, obviously being at his age already, is also a guy that's going to need a little bit more football before he starts hitting stride. If you remember last year, he struggled a little bit in the beginning of the season to get some goals and to get on target. So it's something to look forward to. But the biggest thing for me is that the talent by Benfica players makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. We have probably one of the deeper squads we've had in the longest time. I can't think of a squad that had this many players for each position, like viable options for every position. We have two guys that can play it. We said this last week as well. Our starting 11 may not be as strong as some ones that we had in the past, the Matic ones and stuff like that. But as a squad, it's just a fantastic squad. But really, player quality is like we were saying earlier, player quality is what's going to win the games. I mean, Braga were all over us for the majority of that game after the first 20 minutes, but we ended up winning 3-0. And it looks like a very dominating and flattering performance. But really, if anything, the scoreline tells a little bit of a lie. I mean, we won 3-0, but we didn't play football to win by 3-0. Or Braga didn't play football to lose by 3-0 is probably the more appropriate way to say it. A lot of people will go on and say that coaches win football matches. Um, I don't know if I've never something that I could really agree. Coaches should give you the tools and the opportunities and the
The
know-how,
strategy.
the strategy to win a football match, but they're not going to win a football match for you. I mean, for me, Pep Guardiola is the best coach in the world, but you can bring him to Tondela and they're not going to beat Benfica and Porto every time they play against them. It's just not going to happen. You need player quality. And at the end of the day, that's what resulted for us. I mean, we were talking about Pizzi and how he doesn't have the feet that he thinks he has or the feet that we would wish he has, but he still has above average technical ability. And the goal that he sets up for Jonas and the goal that he scores for the third goal is a measure of that. And Pizzi would play on Braga every day, all the time, at whatever position they want. So it's really what it comes down to is you have talented players, you are one step closer to winning matches.
Yeah, let's talk about the second half. Benfica came out for the second half, and we saw more of what we saw, how Braga finished the first half. We saw more of that. You see the substitution in the 68th minute. Jimenez came in for Mitroglou in a clear substitution to just freshen up the attacking line. Then in the 78th minute, Samaris came in for Jonas again to refresh. But do you think that Rui Vitória is that confident in his defensive processes that he's seeing Braga dominate the game, yet he's confident enough that the defense is going to see the game out?
I don't know. That's a lot of confidence. If we were on the ropes, right? They've had a lot of chances. Julio Cesar made some good saves. Rafa missed an open net. If he has confidence in his defensive structure to that extent where he was calm, I give him a lot of credit. I think the timing of the Samaris substitution is key because you see him warming up on the sidelines, and if I remember right, it was still 1-0. And we probably looked over and like, oh, he wants to try to shore this up and bring on I was thinking he was going to bring Samaris on for Horta and try to beef up the midfield a little bit, which he probably was originally thinking. But as soon as Jonas scored the 2-0, it gave him the opportunity to rest Jonas, play Horta a little bit further up, and everything was a lot more comfortable. But if he was watching that game feeling comfortable, that's a guy with a lot of calma, a lot. I don't know how else to describe it, but that's a guy who's very, very calm because I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah, and we saw Servi quite awesome. But in the second half, we really didn't see a lot of Servi. Do you think that the Braga adapted some of their tactics and their strategy to defend a little bit more, give Servi less space to get the ball?
Oh, for sure. The 4-4-2 brought, for the most part, Pedro Tiba onto his side. And if you guys remember, I know Pedro Tiba played, I believe, in the Spanish second division last term. But if you remember correctly, when Enzo left for Valencia, Tiba was a player that we were looking at, and we saw intensity levels that we thought would be fitting for a number 8 in our club. So you figure that if you bring that type of player to combat against Servi, who's new to the European game, who's new to Benfica, I mean, you're always going to see his type of ability shine when you get the moments of the 1-versus-1, the balls into space, and he's got that crazy pace. You're going to see that. But when the game is tighter and you don't have that recognition of where your supporting players are or where they're supposed to be, it becomes a lot more difficult. And that's where I think Servi started to struggle a little bit. And that's just something that we're going to improve on, and that's something that we should be looking forward to, is seeing him develop and start to learn more about the way the system works at Benfica.
Yeah. Not only that, he's also unfamiliar with the opposition that he's facing. Unlike Gaetan, who knew every guy from playing him so much, that knows what this guy's weak points are and strong points are. And Servi is a guy that still has a bit of learning to do, not only about Rui Vitoria's system, but also with the opposition that he's going to face week in, week out. He's going to know what he could do, where he could be, what guys he can take on, what guys he could get behind, if he could get behind the defender and the central defender in that space. So there's a learning curve for Servi. But I thought that he disappeared in the second half, and I thought that perhaps with the wingers that we have available to us, I thought that maybe Rui Vitória could have gone to the bench to freshen up in that wing, especially where Servia is, because as we were struggling to build the ball, he could have just been giving the ball to the winger and let the winger take some of that pressure away from the team in the midfield. I don't know.
I could definitely see that. We had a really hard time with the release ball. I mean, it wasn't working for Mitroglou. It wasn't working into Jonas's feet. We were really struggling with that ball that really let us relieve the pressure when Braga was on top of us. And I watched the game and I was like, Pizzi, you can't take off because he offers too much brains to our play. You got to leave him. And that was my first guess, was we were probably going to take off Servi and maybe bring on Salvio or Carrillo and then make changes adjusting. Maybe Pizzi would go to the left or whatever. But that was my first substitution in my mind as well, I'd have to say.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, you look at Servi and you look at the way that he started the game, very inspired, and that's a guy that you probably don't want to take, because if he gets get into a good play, there's a chance that he's going to put another one behind the net, or he's going to create something, going to create a chance where it's going to give Benfica a chance to get up on the scoreboard. Unfortunately, he wasn't that guy, but it's a risk you always take. But I mean, in hindsight, there's all these decisions and all these things that we look at that could have been done in hindsight, but Rui Vitória is in there. And for me, he just seemed very confident in the way the team was defending, because, watching Braga having the initiative, watching Braga having chances, especially with the Benfica backline being a bit passive, if you will, and letting Braga take the shots and having good goals at Julio Cesar's goal. I don't know, man. Now I could have sworn that he could have made a couple changes before he brought in Jimenez to shore up some of what was going on.
Jimenez also could have been the outlet ball that we were looking for. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
In the same, where it wasn't working for Mitroglou because he couldn't pull them in for whatever reason, didn't have the strength, isn't really match fit, whichever the reason is. He was probably looking for Jimenez to do the same type of thing. It's not a wrong decision, but I'm with you. Servi did kind of go a little bit flat, but it is what it is. It wasn't a wrong sub by any means. I mean, Mitroglou was very flat, more than flat. He was lackluster, and Servi was played well at least a part of the match. So you gotta take all those variables into play before you make a decision to substitute.
Right. Thankfully, Julio Cesar was there. He was able to save a couple crucial balls. We also had, Jonas, which, regardless of being yet in season's peak form, is a guy that only needs a half a chance to put a ball away. So that's the type of football and the type of players that we have in our squad that can make a difference with just one touch. And again, as you mentioned, brilliant pass by Pizzi, finding Jonas and calm, cool, collected, put the 2-0 past Marafona, and really, I think at that point he took a lot of air out of. He deflated Braga a lot, because at the time I think that Braga thought they were in a game. They thought that they were going to be able to get back, but I think after the second goal they took the wind out of Braga's sails.
For sure. I mean, you had a team that was on the front foot, was pressing, was winning every second ball, to a team that as soon as that goal went in, their heads dropped a bit. And you know what? You want a team to react better, but it's very difficult playing against a team like Benfica when you're Braga, to be 2-0 down and to be all over us and not get the goal that you needed. It's really hard to turn around from that. So I was not surprised. As soon as the second goal went in, I was like, this is going to be a much more comfortable game, and it turned out that way.
Yeah, and I got to be honest with you, regardless of the way the team played, And regardless of the win, I thought it was a very, very good test for Benfica. And I think this Braga team is also a very good team. And I think they're destined for a good season this year in Portugal, as long as they could remain healthy. And I think that if they keep Rafa, which is I think it's unlikely that they keep Rafa. I think their president said that they've already denied a 20 million euro offer because the player wasn't really.
I think it was Russia.
Yeah, it wasn't really, receptive to where it was going. He did not mention any names, but he did say that the player, said he didn't want to go, so they refused the 20 million euro offer. I'm pretty sure that somebody come by. I thought I was very impressed by him. I know that we've Tiba has been a guy that we have identified a few seasons back as a guy that could come in and be helpful for this Benfica team. I thought that Tiba was pretty good. As long as his endurance lasted, I thought he was pretty good. After that, I think that he became ineffective. But Rafa, having what maybe 2 weeks of training be on his belt to be able to have the stamina that he did.
I don't know. The commentator kept playing that line, but let's just go back to the Euro 2016 for a moment. Rafa plays 3 minutes. Rafa is training this whole time and is staying pretty fit. Doesn't get a long vacation where he may put on weight. He may not train as hard. He takes a 2-week holiday. If he takes care of his body, he comes back in good shape. He might be mentally tired. He may be slightly physically tired, or he might just be perfect, like in bang on shape, which is what he looked like. I mean, he made some fantastic touches. He's super quick and very dangerous running at players. He just missed that one goal. If he had scored that one goal, we would be we'd have a very different conversation right now. And I don't know if I'm of the opinion that he's behind in his training regime compared to the rest of the guys. I would love to know how they measure these things, but I would be very surprised if he's any less fit than anybody else in that Braga team.
Yeah, well, if he is any less fit, definitely didn't look it. But the commentator did mention that he's been with the team. He's been with the team for 2 weeks. I mean, obviously, the other guys' levels of endurance are at a different level, if you will. And perhaps the touch. I mean, but as far as his touch goes, I only remember really one chance that he went around a Benfica player, and he just didn't have the quickness to get it past Julio Cesar. But I mean, he's quite a player. I just don't know where he would fit in this Benfica team, with Benfica having as many wingers as they have already.
Yeah, I've tweeted it during the game. I'd like him at Benfica. I don't know where we'd play him. I think Servi probably would lose out if that were the case, but I'm not going to speculate about it at this moment. But if we do end up getting him, there was rumor today that his representative was at Seychelles, and there was discussions. If we do end up getting him, he's going to be a valuable asset to the team. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so our 6th Super Cup, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, our 6th trophy, Super Cup. Obviously, the Super Cup hasn't been is not a competition that as old as the league or the Portuguese Cup, for that matter. So I think that Porto swept up a lot of Super Cups when they were going on that streak of them just winning championship after championship, and it was our 6th Super Cup. But it's always good to start the season on the right foot, Steve, and relieve some of that pressure.
For sure. You can't think of a better way of starting your season than winning a Super Cup. I mean, last year we lost ours to our rival, but we ended up winning the league at the end. But I would have preferred to win that game and win the league at the end. I can tell you that much.
Right. So we're going to take a short break here for Nelson's halftime headlines, and we'll be right back. All right, and we're back with the second half of the Benfica podcast. That's where you're listening to. Alfredo and Steve Santos with you. Cristiano is still in Portugal. As a matter of fact, Cristiano has been doing some work out in Portugal. He was out at the Tondela Stadium, at João Cardoso Stadium, took some pictures of the state of the pitch, posted them on Twitter in our account. And Record stole his pictures. Basically, he hasn't given us any credit. If you go on Record, there's actually a bit of news. Record is reporting that Benfica is considering not showing to the Tondela game because of the state of the pitch. And then within the article itself, there's a link for the pictures. And I swear to God, those are Cristiano's pictures.
Oh, for sure.
Cristiano was out there. What, Monday taking pictures, looking at the stadium, and he posted it, and there was a lot of retweets on that tweet. So Cristiano doing his job out in Portugal. So you
It's
can't
2 years in a row. Chris is getting into the Portuguese press by one way or another. Chris, máquina.
So big shout out to Cristiano, and Cristiano would love to be here. He's just right now he doesn't have a good enough internet connection. So instead of being here and just cutting out all the time, he said, I'm just going to bow out because I don't know how good my internet connection is, but I'll be back. As soon as I'm back in the States, we will be back in studio with Cristiano. So let's turn our attention to Tondela. First game of the season, Benfica will travel up to Tondela's, as we've said, this weekend, Saturday, 8:30 local at the Estádio João Cardoso, as we mentioned, which capacity for 5,000 people. I think that Cristiano also took pictures today of the line to buy tickets for the regular fans, as yesterday was for Tondela Sócios. And he took pictures of the line. So Cristiano says his house is about 10 minutes from this stadium. So it works out perfect.
Yeah. Chris is just on the spot this year. I mean, he's got videos of Benfica bus coming into Aveiro Stadium. He's got fights. He's got pictures of Murillo training. He's got Petit pictures. I'd love to know how this dude just walks right into a training ground and takes pictures. I mean,
hey, Steve, all he really has to say is with the Benfica podcast. That's all he has to say.
Yeah, and then they're going to be like, "Oh, you're scouting our tactics. Yeah. Get the hell out."
The thing with Cristiano's got no fear. He's got no shame whatsoever. He's not afraid to walk into a place, and if they tell him no, they tell him no. But until they tell him no, he's going to do whatever the hell he wants. That's Cristiano, and we're glad. Yeah, today he posted some pictures of Petit, Murillo, and Lichkov, as Steve has mentioned. So Cristiano will be at the game on Sunday. And if you want to, on Saturday, sorry. If you want to look at Cristiano's pictures, go on the Benfica podcast on Twitter and look to our timeline. There's pictures there, and they're the same exact pictures that Record has. I swear. I was comparing the two, and I said, these are Cristiano's pictures. So thanks for giving us the credit, by the way, Record, which they didn't. But let's talk about Tondela now. Tondela coached by Petit, with two players from Benfica who, according to the new rule, are not going to be able to play. But, these Petit teams, Steve, are always very combative.
Yeah, he has teams in his image. I mean, the guy was a little pit bull / warrior on the pitch for us and for Boa Vista, Portuguese national team. And that's the same type of mentality that he instills in his players and his teams. I'd be absolutely lying to you if I said I knew how they're going to form against us and what formation they play. I have not seen any of their football this year. I do believe he did really save him at the end of last year from relegation. Another little bit of information is I know they picked up a kid named Zé Turbo. That was, I believe, a sporting product that went to Inter at like 15 or 16 years old and is now back in Portugal at like 18. Without actually looking it up, I think he's 18 now. Obviously, he has that nickname for being incredibly fast. I do not know if he's good enough to even play against us. We will find out. But that's the little bit of information I have about Tondela for you guys.
Yeah. And I don't know much about Tondela. I wish I could add a little bit more, but they really put on a run last season too. I mean, at one point they were considered that they were going to be relegated, and then they put on a run together, and they were able to survive.
Chris should have really took notes and faxed us over some stuff, But Chris, next time.
he was at their training, so he could have picked up a little bit more. So anyway, Benfica. for the past couple of years in the 2014-2015 season. They won the opening game. Last season, we also won the opening game. But prior to that, we had a streak of like 10 games without winning the opening game. So I'm happy to see that
Hold on.
Benfica got on that final on that streak of the opening game, which is also it's very crucial to get started on the right foot.
Alfie,
Yeah,
can I cut you off for a second? Because I have the weirdest memory, as you guys know. But I
go ahead.
thought our opening game was versus Aroca, and we lost in
You're
Aveiro
right.
last
You're
year.
right. You're right about that. I don't know what I
So
was looking at. So
so
yeah,
that's
we did lose.
that's that's been even under JJ. We had a lot of losing or tying first matches. It's a little bit of a curse that we have, but
Yeah, it was awful. You're right. You're right. I forgot all about
I
that
remember the
Roca game.
game, but I just couldn't remember for sure if it was the first fixture. That's why
Well, Cristiano, I thought that I'd look this up on 0-0 before I came on. And Cristiano was actually at that game, but I don't know if that was the first game or not. I
I'm gonna
remember.
look it up.
Look it up real quick. From last year, I know that 14-15 we won. Last year, I could have sworn that we won 4-0 against Turil. Last game, last season, first game of the season.
Was
Four
that the
nothing
first game?
against Turil.
Last season was 4-0 versus Estoril first
Villa,
game.
Villa,
I'm
Villa.
gonna check. I thought
Check it.
that was when we first started turning it around, but maybe
Yeah,
not.
check that
Let's.
out.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
At
Uh,
Stadio de Luz, I think, because I think the second game was then against Tarouca, and that's the game that we lost. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I'm not
Uh,
gonna be quick enough to get it. We'll
but
tweet it
anyway,
out,
no,
guys.
no, you go ahead and look, and I'll go into the
Okay.
next thing. So for after we played Tondela this coming weekend, we will then host the Vitória de Setúbal on the 21st of August or thereabouts, and then we will travel to Madeira to face Nacional. In that same third round, Sporting will play Porto. I'm not really sure where they will play, but Sporting will play Porto. So it's very crucial that in these first three games we get all W's, so we could take advantage of a possible loss of points by either one of those two clubs, which are going to be our direct adversaries, if you will, in the race for the 36. So that's what we're looking at as far as August goes, and then we get into September. But very crucial to get the win in this first game at a field that we've already said that doesn't look as good as it should. The conditions of the pitch. Tondela claims that the field is in good condition, that it just looks bad, but the ball rolls like any other. And they say that the grass hasn't been able to breathe because of all the fires that are going up north, and the lack of oxygen, if you will, in the
Crazy heat.
in the atmosphere, and obviously that dry heat that's being felt in Portugal, especially in northern Portugal. It's a very dry heat. So it's important that Benfica get the win against Tondela, and then we come back at home against Setúbal, which is a team that has reinforced themselves well with some Sporting players, with some Benfica players. We saw them at the Algarve Cup. We played them against the Algarve Cup, and they were pretty decent. So it's going to be a tough game. Regardless of being at home, is going to be a tough game. And then trip to Nacional is always tough. Do you have that? Am I right or no?
You were right. 4-0.
4-0.
4-0 at
So
home versus the studio.
okay, so we opened up last season 4-0 against Turil, and then we lost the second game of the season, Aroca, in Aveiro, where Patrick and Cristiano were at. So I know I looked that up, man. I have, because my memory is not as good as you, Steve.
My memory's awful. It's just very weird. I remember the weirdest of things, but anyway.
Right. So, Steve, just looking at the Super Cup, and what do you think the mental effects, especially from winning the first game of the season? You think that has a big impact on the way the team can pick up some momentum going forward, especially in a third round where Porto and Sporting will play each other?
Oh, for sure. I mean, starting the season off with the trophies is a much better boost to your morale than losing it and having that hanging over your head that you already lost a trophy and you're not starting the season well. Winning a trophy at the beginning of the season, albeit people always in every league always try to play down the Super Cup or the Community Shield or whatever you want to call it, depending on the league. But a trophy is a trophy. It's has a lot to do with your prior season. I mean, it's the cup winner versus the league winner. but it still has that final atmosphere where it's you can't tie the match, you got to win.
Yeah,
It's different, man, and having that under your
important.
belt is definitely a positive. There's no way you could take any negatives from it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Just think about it as if you're starting a race and you're a sprinter, or for example, you're taking the example of the Olympics, you're a swimmer. You want to make sure you get off the blocks very well, so you don't have that against you. So right away, you're not fighting to get back on top. You want to make sure that you get a good start. So it's that the first win is very important.
I mean,
Um,
and if it was turned around, Benfica has been in the press a lot lately about having a very deep squad, talented players. Uh, how Rui Vitória this season has all the tools to even better from last season. If we were to lose that match, imagine how much the papers would be down our throat, and be like,
yeah.
oh, um, this season Benfica has better players, but weren't able to pull it off versus Braga and blah blah blah. So you have to. There's no way you could be negative about a Super Cup win.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first getting a win on the first game is just as important. I got a couple Twitter questions here before we start wrapping this up. Kevin Bleeka Toucher, with just about every newspaper reporting Hernandez to Benfica, a possibility. Do you see him being added to the squad? Do you see him being added to the squad happening? I think the biggest thing with the Nunners was his salary, right? That's what's the biggest thing that's been kind of preventing us from going and getting him.
I believe the salary was like double of what we normally pay our highest paid players. So
Yeah. What
I, I
do we?
believe I believe the most we really pay is 2 million a year, if I'm not mistaken, and he has demands for four. I think that's what I'm. Again, my memory and especially for not for numbers is not the greatest, but I believe that's what it is. So
Yeah. I mean, would we like him? Absolutely, we would like him.
yeah, quality player. Why would you not want him? But uh, I would I would pass on him at this point if that's what we had to pay him year by year to keep
Yeah.
him at 31 years old. I'm not super interested, as talented as he is.
Yeah, maybe Jonas and Julie Cesar can convince him to lower his salary. But at this point, I think that even the move to China, where he's going to be making triple what he's making now at Juventus, would be probably more attractive than a
Yeah,
move to Benfica, where he's going to make less than what he's making at
yeah.
Juventus.
I saw a article this morning. He's been linked to everybody. I think it's a guy who's looking for a good contract to finish off his career, and his agent's just spitting it out to everybody and everyone. We'll see if we're really interested or we really are a contender for him in the next few days. But I don't know. I have my doubts on that one.
Yeah. And the next one is from Neil. With Benfica squad deep enough, can we make a good run to the Champions League? I think that it all depends on who we get on the group stage and who we
Hmm.
get on the first round. If we make it past the group stage, I think this team has talented enough to equal last year's feat, or if you want to call it a feat, or how far we got in the Champions League. I think this team is has enough quality, but I think that it has a lot to do who we get in the group stages, and then coming out of the group stages in February, who we face.
Yeah.
So it has a lot to do with that. You kind of need a little bit of luck too during the group stage and that first pairing that we get. After that, you're going to get the big teams, and you're going to have to beat them if you want to get any further. But the group stage is crucial. Um, I think that's all I got. It was a
45
fast. It was
minutes.
a fast one. What do we got? We're at 38. So
38. Yeah,
yeah.
you know what? I've always said 45 minutes is the ideal pod length. So if we're at 38, that's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's the average commute is 45 minutes, so it works out. Uh, planetbenfica.co.uk is where you can find our friends in England and everything Benfica. BenficaPodcast.com, at Steve Cento 6. At Benfica Podcast is where you can find us on Twitter, also on Facebook. Thank you very much for checking us out. Birthday shout out, albeit Um, a delayed one. Nelson's
Oh,
birthday was on Sunday, so birthday to him. You got
happy
some?
birthday, Nelson. I got something. Deixa o Talisca andar. Vai-te embora.
Deixa a Talisca andar. That's a good one.
Seriously, it's been in the papers for I don't know how many weeks or months, and I get my every day. I wake up in the morning. I'm like, okay, he's gonna be in a picture with what is it, a Wolves shirt. I'm like, yes, that's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'd be so happy, and he's still here.
Yes. So
But
apparently, from what I've been reading, there's this huge thing about his work permit because
yeah,
as
he hasn't had many internationals and
yeah.
stuff like
So I think they're working out some kind of a loophole to see
that.
where it
Jorge
could
Mendes.
to see where it could go play. But I think that most I've been hearing, even in some of the European news outlets are saying that he's going to end up at the Wolves. I think it's just a matter of tightening up what's going on over there and finding the loophole to get around that. So we'll just have to see. Anything else as far as Carcelo seems to be on the way out, but I think that's about it. We haven't seen.
Farina was confirmed to be loaned out to a Greek side that I don't remember the name of. I think that Sensadino was sold indefinitely to Aroca.
Yeah,
So
good riddance. I never,
yeah,
I never really
I
rated
never
that
really
kid.
rated him either. I won't go as far as saying good riddance. I don't think he was a bad kid. I just don't think he was that great of a footballer.
You could take him in his hair wherever he
That's
wants
for
to go.
sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for checking us out. Don't forget to check out Atencio 10 for your latest pitch images from straight from Portugal. And I thank you very much. And we'll be back next week. We will recap the Tondela game and we'll look ahead to the Stubble game, the inaugural game at Stade de Luz this season. Thank you very much. And talk to you again soon next week. See ya.
Ciao.